This is the main event. It is for the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Championship. Introducing first the challenger from Venice Beach, California, weighing 303 pounds, the Incredible Hulk Hogan. And his opponent from Tehran, Iran, weighing 258 pounds, the World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, the Iron Sheik.
He waits for a moment. He is on top of the Sheik. Pounding away. The Sheik still has his robe on. Hulk now has the Sheik's robe, and he clotheslined him with it. Sheik now going to work. Got his man in a compromising position and is putting the boots to it. And the noise is deafening here in Madison Square Garden. Down for the cover. No way. Hogan got those hands right in underneath that chest and shoved him off of there. Sheik going here for a Boston Crab. He's got him over. Now he's going for it. Camel clutch coming up. Yes, he's got it. He's got those fingers interlocked. He's starting to shake. He's got to reach down inside for that little something extra. Look at he's powering his way up. He's made it to its knees. Hulk Hogan now stands up with a Sheik and rams him into the top turnbuckle. Hulk Hogan, he drops a big leg on him. He's down for the cover. Hook the leg. 1, 2. He got him.
Ladies and gentlemen, the winner of this bout and new World Wrestling Federation Heavyweight Champion, the Incredible Hulk Hogan.
History made in Madison Square Garden. Hulkamania is here.
Welcome back, everybody, to part 2 of the Essential Hulk Hogan. I am BC, and you are also joined today by Andy the Taxman from Grappling Canada. Andy, how you doing?
Good, brother. Very happy to be back again in the passenger seat, if you will.
Well, there you go. I appreciate you coming along for the ride. So in part 1 of this series, we tackled Hulk Hogan's essential matches from his time, basically starting in wrestling up until his final matches in the AWA, right before Hulkamania begins in the WWF. So, Andy, do you remember Hulk Hogan when he first joined the WWF, when that was? In his second run, I should say.
So that would have been, well, technically, was it not December of 83?
That is correct.
Ooh.
Yes. Do you remember the name of his first opponent?
No, you stumped me on this one. I apologize.
Not many do. It's December 27th, 1983. It's against Bill Dixon. It was for a taping, I believe, of Wrestling at the Chase, if I'm not mistaken. It was in St. Louis. Very different atmosphere. It was like, it looked like a hotel ballroom that they were doing this in, as opposed to the usual arena settings for the WWF. But as we mentioned in episode 1, Hogan really should have had the rocket strapped to him. He should have been AWA World Champion. He should have been carrying the AWA banner right through the 80s and just putting them up as the number 1 wrestling promotion in America. But unfortunately, that wasn't what happened. We got 3 screw jobs on finishes to championship matches for the AWA. So Hogan, being the smart businessman he was, talked with Vince McMahon, saw what young Vince McMahon had in store for the wrestling world in the 1980s, and he decided it was time to get on board with that. So Hogan makes the jump to the WWF in late 1983, but when he really comes on board is early January, when he is basically brought out during a taping. I believe it was still Championship Wrestling. It could have been Superstars Wrestling at that point, but I'm pretty sure it was still Championship Wrestling in '84. Bob Backlund brings out Hulk Hogan. Now, this is shortly after Backlund had lost the WWF World Title to the Iron Sheik. Obviously, Vince wanted to transition the belt from Bob Backlund, who had been the champion of the WWF for 5+ years now, move it on to a heel. And boy, what a heel to move it on to, the Iron Sheik, and what a time to put it on him with such a political environment, let's just say, with the whole Iran US relations and some of the things that happened between them. So a perfect transition champion for the all-American hero Hulk Hogan to come into the WWF and face off against. But Backlund brings him in, gives him the seal of approval.
You don't have to introduce this man to anybody. Everybody knows the Hulk. Everybody knows the Hulk. He's changed his ways. He's a great man. He's told me he's not going to have Blasty around. I'm going to give him my hand and give him good luck.
All right, Bob, you know something? I would like to thank Mr. Bob Backlund and the WWF for bringing the Hulkster back. But like they said, this is a different Hulk Hogan, and Hulkamania's already running wild.
Kind of a questionable is why Backlund wasn't getting that shot instead of Hogan, but they played it off to the injury of that he got injured during the title match with the Iron Sheik. But of course, he was wrestling in house shows and different things like that in the weeks leading up to Hogan's title shot. So, kind of interesting how they did that. But whatever, Vince wasn't big on details at that point. He's just like, let's just get the belt on this guy. And boy, did he ever! So, our first match that you want to check out as a wrestling fan of the 1980s in the WWF, check out Hulk Hogan, January 23rd, that 1984. That date is forever ingrained in my memory. I'll never forget that date, January 23rd, 1984. Hulk Hogan versus the Iron Sheik. Hogan wins the WWF World Title. I mentioned it in our last episode. The explosion for that moment, the fans were just salivating for that title change for Hogan. And I think there was a lot of people that followed him in the AWA that knew what had happened over there. And finally, they were seeing him get that title in WWF. But, that pop was crazy in Madison Square Garden. But I still wonder if the Minnesota pop was even bigger in 1982 on the title change that never happened. But anyways, Hogan wins the title from the Iron Sheik. Was there just what a setup? What a absolute perfect scenario for Hogan to walk into in the WWF.
So it is, and kind of as a twofold as well, because like you had prefaced it before with Backlund dropping the title to the Iron Sheik. That was really also the passing of the guard from Vince McMahon Sr. to Vince McMahon Jr. Now, there are a couple of things at play, and you don't mind if I get a little bit deep in the weeds here, do you?
Oh, I love the weeds.
All right, so here we go. So a lot of people don't realize that back then, this is when Vince McMahon Sr. sold the WWF to Titan Sports, which is Vince McMahon Jr. Mm-hmm. Now, I know the conventional wisdom was always that Vince Jr. essentially bought it with Vince Sr.'s own money. The idea being that Vince Jr. was going to be paying via consignment. So the idea was that every month there was a set amount that he would have to pay. If he would have defaulted, the company would have reverted back to Vince Sr. And then Gorilla Monsoon also would have been a beneficiary at that point. People don't realize how close Vince Jr. actually was to defaulting on that proposition. They had actually given Vince Jr. a couple of months of leeway to make up the money. So Hogan coming in and Vince strapping the rocket to him was really he had to find a way to really elevate the territory, because otherwise he was going to be out of the territory. So it was kind of a twofold portion. So there's the money aspect, and then there's the aspect of Vince was really trying to put his stamp on what the WWF was going to be. Again, you had champions from the Tri-WF era were, again, much like the AWA, much like the NWA, they were former amateur champions, up to and including Backlund, who was a hell of an amateur athlete.
And the Sheik.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gold medal winner with the Iranian Olympic team. Yes.
Yeah.
Before he had to extricate himself from the country, although I think that's a completely different conversation to have.
Yeah.
So really what you have, it's a convergence of all these things that have to go perfectly right in order for Vince McMahon to really change and develop the WWF into what eventually it would become.
Yeah, and I think it says a lot more so on the other investors that possibly could have pulled the plug on that than, because I know his father was not too keen on the whole takeover side of things, that Vince had plans and really busting up the NWA and the territory system and all that stuff, because he was old school. But I think the guys like Gorilla and different people like that,
yeah,
they understood what he was doing, and I think they saw the bigger picture. And they also, I think, especially a guy like Gorilla knew this was going to be big money for him in the long run on this whole situation too. So kudos to them for giving them that little extra leeway to just get over the finish line with it. Yeah.
And I think he would Gorilla specifically was one of the real stalwart voices in the locker room saying, "Hey, I know he's defaulted. He's going to be good. I can see where this is going." So yeah, and obviously it worked out gangbusters eventually.
Yeah, for sure. And just very quickly speaking on Gorilla, I mean, what a key part he played in that whole run as well. Just being on the announcing side. I mean, we know what a legendary wrestler he was, but of course he is the voice of that time period as well. I mean, so many memories, so many memorable calls. So it all just was. It was a perfect storm. We talked about it during your episode when we were talking about the legacy of Hulk Hogan and remembering Hulk Hogan. And I mentioned, like, I feel like Vince and Hulk were just the perfect tag team to take on that whole battle. So kind of going back to our talk about, well, would the AWA be doing Wrestle Rock 41, this year? Probably not, because Hogan wasn't going to be able to do it alone. You still had Vern Gagne at the helm. You needed that person that was thinking outside the box. So, and was Vince going to be able to do it alone? No, they were just the perfect combination, and they just met at the right time, and it took off, and that's what it was. I don't think it would have happened any other way. But anyways, an epic moment. I mean, anybody wants to go back, they can go check out my channel. I have many videos just talking about the whole Hulk Hogan title win. It's one for the ages. It's not the greatest match, but man, the excitement in that arena is just unreal. In my video, I put so many sound clips of just the crowd, and it was just so fantastic to hear the excitement and the crowd pops at that time period. Evan brought up a good point during your episode too. There's Hogan pre-87 when he beats Andre. It's a different Hogan as far as the way he wrestled in the WWF versus once the Andre win happened and he was now king of the world. It was just a formula. It was, big man. Hogan faces the big man. Hogan faces the big man. He gets beat down. He hulks up. He gets the win, right? I feel like prior to that, he had a real good mix of opponents back in the 80s, especially in 84. There's a couple of matches I want to point out in 1984 that are a couple of gems that I'd love for people to check out. One is from May 24th, 1984 at Madison Square Garden. It's an MSG show. It's him versus Dr. D, David Shultz. Now, we mentioned Dr. D back in the AWA days because he was a great foe of Hulk Hogan at that time. What a promo that guy was, too. But I don't know if you've ever seen this match before, Andy, but if you can find it, go check it out, because I just wanted to bring it up because this is very early in his title run, and it just goes to show, number one, him fighting Shultz is a guy he can trust, a guy he knows he can work with, a guy he worked with in the past, the AWA, but it's also for people that think that Hogan was kick, punch, big boot, leg drop, no, he wasn't doing flying tackles and arm drags, but holy God, could he ever move in the ring at that time? In 1984, that's 6'7", 300 pounds flying across that ring. He was moving. He was fast. He had fire. He was great opponent in Shultz. He could really bring out the fire in Hogan. It's just one where it's just nobody would think to go check it out, but I loved it. It was just this nice way to see like what it was like prior to the whole just get beat down, sell with the facials, and then Hulk up. This was Hogan on fire.
This was also before WWF got in the big selling the sizzle instead of the steak, right? This is like I had previously mentioned, they're still transitioning from the type of wrestling that Vince McMahon Sr. presented, transitioning to the type of wrestling that Vince McMahon Jr. would eventually move into. Unfortunately, in the 90s, we'll get into that later, I'm sure.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, this literally is right before, because this is May of 84. July of 84 is when we have the first, it was the Brawl to End It All. Brawl to End It All was the first one in 84, and then War to Settle the Score was in it was the second one. But yeah, so July was when they're starting that whole relationship with Cyndi Lauper and the MTV and the rock and wrestling connection. So this is right before that. And so this is just, you're seeing Vince's vision, but you're also seeing a little bit of the old school, just two guys just, kicking the crap out of each other type of thing. Right. So it was pretty cool to watch. Now, speaking of that, Brawl to End It All. So this happens in 1984, and I cannot, for anybody that's a younger fan that doesn't understand MTV and the influence it had back in the 80s, and for us in Canada, it'd be Much Music, it was the influence here. But people don't understand what a big deal MTV was, because right now you can just go on Spotify and get any song in the world that you want to listen to and download it or whatever. But back then, that was it. That was music. That was music television. That's where you saw your videos and stuff like that. It was the biggest channel going for anybody that was under the age of 18. It was just massive. And this is in the early infancy stages of MTV. I think they started in 81, if I'm not mistaken. And here we are in 1984, and they make this connection with wrestling, with WWF, with Hulk Hogan, with Roddy Piper, with Captain Lou Albano. He's making a connection with Cyndi Lauper, who arguably is the biggest pop star at that time in 1984, probably neck and neck with Madonna, maybe a little bit ahead of her at that time. You had the Brawl to End It All. This was a big event. It was going to be on MTV. It was going to be, shown in prime time on MTV. Unheard of. Did a massive rating on MTV. I think it was like a 14 rating. Like, to put that in comparison, what does WWE do for Raw now? Like a 1.7 or something like that, if I'm not mistaken.
Get it around there, yeah.
Yeah. So we're talking a 14 rating, right? The only match that truly was shown on that show was the Fabulous Moolah Wendy Richter match, which tells you so much right there. That's how hot things were at that time. There was a second match. It was Hulk Hogan and Greg Valentine. It was shown on closed circuit TV, but I don't think it was actually shown on the MTV broadcast. So I couldn't find a copy of that. So I had to go looking for a Greg Valentine match, because hell, I'll sit and watch a Greg Valentine match from the 80s anytime. So I did find one. August 4th, 1984 in the Philadelphia Spectrum. It was Hogan versus Greg Valentine. Again, not sure if you've seen this one, Andy. If not, I think you.
I haven't seen this one. Then no.
Yeah, go check it out. What I like about this is, again, it's 84. Hogan's still moving quick as a cat. But what is always, I will always give Hogan credit for, and not enough people give credit for, he has an uncanny ability to sell believable, and be beaten down by a guy, but like Greg Valentine, who's not a small man, but he's not as big as Hogan. But he doesn't get small. He doesn't look weak. He doesn't look small. He just lets the guy work apart or do something like this, right? Like, where I found in the later years, he needed the big guy to be wrestling, because that's how he got knocked down and sold. But when selling for Valentine, he did a fantastic job of selling. And Valentine, of course, working the leg the whole match and stuff like that. Great match. I mean, Valentine's as stiff as anything, right? It takes, as Gorilla would say, 20 minutes to get warmed up. But yeah, go check it out, because I could not find that Brawl to settle it all. It's really hard to find those recordings. I don't think they've ever shown up because of rights issues with MTV and WWF and all that stuff and all the music that was involved with it. But Hogan versus Greg Valentine. Any thoughts on Valentine itself? And have you ever seen any Hogan Valentine matches?
I haven't seen Hogan Valentine at all, but Valentine, you put it perfectly. He's a guy who worked way bigger than he actually was.
Yeah.
And it also, we talked previously in episode, or the first part, I should say, about opponents that were set up properly for Hulk Hogan, even going back to the AWA, Bockwinkel, right? You look at those matches. Forget about the finishes. I'm just talking about setting up a dance partner, if you will, for Hogan. And Valentine's just building on that. Again, Hogan is only 4 years, truthfully, into his main run here. Yeah, pretty green. And so to have the experience of a guy like Greg Valentine is it's just a great formula to go with.
Yeah, and I mean, we're talking 7 months into Hogan's reign, or really 6 months because it's early August. I mean, his opponents at that time, I mean, he had Shultz, he had I think a brief match with Orndorff, Valentine, and then it's guys like Big John Studd and stuff like that. Different. That would be a guy that would be more fitting for him in like 86, 87. But to see him wrestle with guys like Orndorff and Shultz and Valentine and all these, and the WWF was so good at just churning out opponent after opponent after opponent for him, right? You're not seeing the 14th match in a row of Roman Reigns versus CM Punk. It's different opponent every time, so it's a different style, and I think that's why his title reign worked, and why you could sit there and go, yeah, it's a 4-year title reign, but it didn't feel like it was a long time, for them to have that belt. So yeah, check it out. Again, I'm trying to find matches that people can actually find. So that one is on YouTube. It's Philadelphia Spectrum, August 4th, 1984. And again, just on a side note, if you want to check out anything from Greg Valentine from 84 and before that,
do it.
Probably one of the best deals in wrestling from the early 80s, late 70s, early 80s on. So yeah. Next up, so I after that, from basically that first year of Hogan's run was kind of like just him feeling out and getting that Hogan vibe and what's it going to be. And Vince was trying to figure out what's rock and wrestling going to look like, what's Hulkamania going to look like. And then we have the big event that really starts to set things off. We have the War to Settle the Score, February 18th, 1985. Again, second broadcast on MTV. Again, does a monster rating. And this time we do get a Hogan match, and it's Hogan Roddy Piper. And this has been building for, it feels like forever, but it's been building since Roddy Piper joined the WWF back in January of 84 as well. So they they're just running buddies through this whole thing, joining the Fed at the same time. Piper's building his gimmick, building his name. Really the feud had been with Cyndi Lauper and Captain Lou and all these people and these surrogates through 84. Piper's making a name for himself with his whole Piper's Pit controversies, the Jimmy Snuka feud, all this stuff. And then we've got the main event of this War to Settle the Score. And have you seen this match in this video?
This one I've seen, not recently, but I love Piper. We did 7 hours on Piper on the Grappling with Canada channel, but this is the one people still talked about it even into the 90s because, and we're getting way ahead of ourselves, but with Piper's run in WCW when they were meeting again. So this one was a long time coming, and then there was a long aftermath after that. I think a lot of people kind of forget about.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, I just love how the match even just started, just the two of them throwing haymakers at each other, just rapid punches, and it was on. It was like, that's how a wrestling match should start, with two people that hate each other. You don't lock up, you just start throwing punches at each other. It was great, but of course, this is what all laid the groundwork for WrestleMania 1. So, and it's hard to believe when you think about it. So this happened on February 18th of 85. WrestleMania 1 is March 31st of 1985. So you had 6 weeks to build up WrestleMania, right? Yeah. So I know everybody says, Vince had to bet the farm on the on WrestleMania, and he had to remortgage the house and stuff like that. And if it wasn't a success, that was it. He was going to go broke. Okay.
He also got a secret $1 million from Antonio Inoki, and that's an interesting caveat to this whole thing.
Yeah, he got $1 million from Ted Turner to for the Black Saturday too, right? So I mean, and plus he also had Hulk Hogan, and he just had 2 events on MTV that just did monster ratings.
Massive.
I don't think he was sweating bullets like they make it out to be, and it's
so just on the same vein, again, the criticism, or Hogan is always criticized about not having a good match. Go and watch that Piper match.
Yeah,
and it's a true, and of note, and this is back in the days when star ratings were actually relatively sane. So 3.5 stars for that match out of 4. That's what the rating was back then. I mean, like, there you go. That says it all. And that's when wrestling media was a little more, what's the word I'm looking for? Cogent,
sane,
if you will.
Sane maybe.
Yeah, sane. It might be the way to go. Yeah.
Yeah. Not influenced maybe as much by
there
certain
you go.
things. Yeah. Well, and I'm telling you, these 3 matches that I just gave are, you cannot say that Hogan couldn't work when you watch these matches, because he could. He worked to his opponents, which was the big thing, right?
Yes.
And I mean, not like Roddy was the best work in the world, but he knew how to brawl, and that's what they did that match. And
well, and that's what they needed too.
Yeah, and it was fire. I mean, it's Madison Square Garden. You had the finish being, of course, Roddy's not going to get pinned, right? So you have the schmaz finish. The first time you see Cowboy Bob Orton in a sling, you go, because he got hurt during that earlier match. Mr. T gets involved. Cyndi Lauper's there. I mean, it's just crazy. It's as Gorilla would say, it's pandemonium, and it really was. And you want to talk about a territory on fire. And that's what we're talking about right there. And I mean, and it goes hand in hand with 3 people: Hogan, Piper, McMahon. I mean, they knew what they were doing. So we get the setup, but again, I go back to, really, you had 6 weeks to build WrestleMania, but it was all built around this one match, and it's the tag team match, which is our next match we're going to talk about, because again, it's another great match. WrestleMania 1, March 31st, 1985, Hulk Hogan and Mr. T versus Roddy Piper and Paul Orndorff. And the build they did for this match was phenomenal. They actually, Piper and Orndorff had you believing that they could not stand T, that they were going to try to kill him. They're going to try to hurt him. They're going to try to break his legs.
Some of that might have been real life too.
Some of it, yeah. But they're pros. They but they just did such a good job. I myself, I love Paul Orndorff, one of my favorite wrestlers of all time.
I think he's criminally underrated. I think a lot of people they look at his later work when he had the arm issue, and I mean, but he was firing back then.
Oh yeah. So we got the build for that. The publicity tour that Hogan and T went on was just insane. I mean, and right up until the night before, they're doing Saturday Night Live. From, I guess in the U.S. it would have been 11:30 to 1 a.m. But they're going to Madison Square Garden the next day to have the match for WrestleMania. But this is the granddaddy of them all. Now, when you look back, it doesn't feel like, you look at now, we got 2 days of events and pyro and ballyhoo and stuff like this, but this was a big deal because of how they were presenting it, and with the whole closed circuit TV and all that stuff. And yeah, you could say that the future WWF was riding on it, but I think they were pretty safe there. I mean, they were pretty safe, but this is what pretty much told the rest of the wrestling world that we're just pulling away. We're leaving you in our dust. What were your thoughts on that match? Like, I thought it was a well-worked match. It had intensity. Again, Piper brawling. T did a good job, like, in comparison to what we see nowadays with a jelly roll or something like that. What were your thoughts on the match?
No, I thought, like, obviously I'm partial because I love Piper, and I thought he really brought it. Paul Orndorff played it perfect. I mean, again, I know he gets a lot of flack from his later work, but you got to see him when he's in his prime here. And Hogan is just, it was built to be a spectacle. Like,
yes.
And this is really when you see Vince lean into the sizzle, because everything around that this is back when fans were paying for, they weren't paying to see the WWF. They were paying to see the match. There was a reason to be there, not just for the, now you go to a WWE show, you never know who's going to be on it. You're paying for the brand. This is when you're paying your hard-earned money to see these people. And yeah, everything leading up to it was just unbelievable. Even Cyndi Lauper, like, she should be in the Hall of Fame, because she should. Yeah. Just everything about it was that was the start of wrestling transcending into a real mainstream spectacle, rather than just being a wrestling program.
Yeah, it's the beginning of sports entertainment.
Yes, absolutely. Perfect.
Whether now, obviously we can argue whether that was good or whether that was bad. What it begot nowadays, it's bad. But at the time, man, oh man, it was wonderful.
Well, and it was just wild.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's just, it's unfortunate that others couldn't keep up is the problem. But, what a time to be a wrestling fan. So that's 85. Now, you have the big event, or we'll get to the big event, actually. Sorry, but you have the WrestleMania event. 85 for the rest of the year is more just like the Hogan victory tour almost for WrestleMania and the WWF victory tour. There's not too much going on through 85, except now we get the invention of Saturday night's main event, which becomes a big deal. And that's again, primetime wrestling. Well, network wrestling, we should say, on NBC, and it's a fill-in for Saturday Night Live and stuff like that. But again, that's where you're really starting to see the sports entertainment side of things happening. You have TNT, the talk show that Vince McMahon had, and so he's really going with the sports entertainment stuff. But every once in a while, you will get an old wrestling match, and he did on one of the early versions of Saturday Night's Main Event from January 4th of 1986, Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk. And I mean, hearing the words Hulk Hogan versus Terry Funk almost sounds like a LSD trip or something like that, but it was great just to see, again, a different style for Hogan. You've got a wild man in Funk, a brawler. Of course, he's still playing into the WWF side of things, and he's playing a little bit of a crazy cowboy. But in the end, he's still Terry Funk, and he took Hogan to the limits. I mean, in what we can see on a Saturday night's main event. But if I'm going to pick a match from the early Saturday night main events that you want to check out, I'm going to say this match, Hulk Hogan and Terry Funk. I'm not sure if you checked it out on the network or anything like that.
I haven't seen this one. There's a second match involving Hogan and Terry Funk. Maybe we can touch on that one in a minute here.
Yeah, if you want to lead into that one, that's fine.
Yeah. So again, we're still in 86, and this is May 1st, 1986. We're jumping ahead a little bit. Yep. Hulk Hogan and Junkyard Dog, who was unaffectionately known as Junk Food Dog, I think, at this point. Yeah, against the aforementioned Terry Funk and Hoss Funk.
Yes.
Also known as Dory Funk Jr.
Funk.
So, but I love this. This was a great match, and not so much for Junkyard Dog's portion of it, although he did look good. But a lot of that, you give a lot of credit to the Funk brothers, because they just worked their ass off. And I mean, I love watching them tag. I know we're not talking about Japan a whole lot, but my God, just their work from the 70s into the 80s, and they carried it over here. Yeah, it's a little bit safe for a Saturday night main event. It has to be. This is NBC primetime. They're not going to get completely wild, and they got to tone down the funks a little bit. If you've seen their work in Japan, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But this is a great match, and again, you're showcasing a different side of Hogan. There wasn't a whole lot I may be mistaken, but wasn't a whole lot of times that he tagged in 86.
Yeah, he had a tag match with Andre in 85 on SME, on Saturday Night's Main Event, and it was against Bundy and Stud. I was thinking about including it, but Andre's pretty worn down at that time, and it wasn't the greatest of matches. But this one, I have a fond memory of this one because this is the first Saturday Night's Main Event that I got to stay up and watch live. Because I remember that one. Yeah, it was the tag match, and then Bundy and Uncle Elmer and Adrian Adonis against Orndorff, because Orndorff had done the face turn, and then my favorite tag team, the British Bulldogs, fought Sheik and Volkov, defended the titles against Sheik and Volkov. So yeah, that was a great Saturday Night's Main Event. And then of course the next one after that was the famous Ricky Steamboat Jake Roberts incident. So that was a good run of main events, I'll tell you that. But yeah, just
how far we've come, by the way. Oh boy.
I know. But yeah, that one's a fond memory as well for me. So I'm glad you brought that match up. I could have included so many, but but yeah, that's a great one. And it's funny, we both pick on a Terry Funk match. So that tells you a lot about Terry Funk too, right? And I mean, this is at the point too, one of the big differences with WWF we're seeing at this time. Hogan, as I said in the previous episode, is like big match Hulk now. Like you don't see Hogan on Saturday mornings wrestling against an enhancement talent. You see Hogan at WrestleMania, you see him on Saturday Night's Main Event, and that's it. That's your match. So it was a big deal to see Hogan in a match. That's why Saturday Night Main Event became so successful. Some would argue maybe that's the problem with modern wrestlers. We see some guys a bit too often, so they don't feel special anymore. Well, Hogan certainly felt special. Now, one thing that leading to our next memory that I'm going to bring up, and maybe you have another match before this, but this led into, we're going from May of 1986 to July 19th, 1986, my favorite heel turn of all time. It's the Hulk Hogan, Paul Orndorff versus King Kong Bundy, Big John Studd match. And this was on Superstars of Wrestling on a Saturday morning, because they did such a great job of building up the heel turn. Orndorff turns babyface right after WrestleMania 1 because he was blamed for the loss at WrestleMania 1, even though it was Cowboy Bob Orton that had hit him with the cast and cost him the match. So Hogan tag team with Orndorff a little bit, but Orndorff was tag team with Mr. T and different things like that. He was feuding with Roddy Piper. Roddy Piper goes away to film, I believe, They Live during 86. Yeah. He's filming They Live, and somebody who we mentioned on the last episode, one of our favorites of the show, Adrian Adonis, takes over Piper's Pit and turns it into the flower shop. And this is one of my most vivid memories of watching wrestling back in the 80s, is seeing the whole flower shop and the battle between Piper and Adonis for the talk show rights and stuff like that. I was traumatized by the attack on Piper when they him, Morocco, and Orton beat him up, and they put lipstick on his face and stuff like that. I'm like this 11-year-old watching this going, what the hell's going on? But yeah, so this leads, but part of the whole gimmick with the flower shop was Adonis was picking on Orndorff and goading him into that. He was just Hogan's lackey, and he was Hulk Jr. and stuff like this. So they did such a good job to set up this whole heel turn, and even to the point where Orndorff, being the hothead he is, says, "Well, I'll call Hogan right now, and I'll get him on the phone." And of course, Hogan's, what was the famous saying? He was under 700 pounds of weights or something like that on the bench press, and couldn't get the phone, and so Orndorff loses it, breaks the phone, and then we have the initial tag match was Orndorff and Hogan against the Moondogs, and Orndorff just basically took the whole match and beat them on his own. And then it seemed like they made up, and then there it is. And this was a big deal to have Hogan Orndorff against Bundy Studd on a Saturday morning, when you're getting Orndorff against Jose Luis Rivera or something like that. So you probably didn't watch this one live. I remember watching this one live, but I'm sure you've watched this many, many, many times.
No, this predates me, period.
Yeah.
So I never watched it live. I have watched it, but it's been years since I've seen this match. But again, what I do remember most is the heel turn, and just because that goes into something that I'm sure we'll talk about in a couple of minutes.
Yeah. The heel turn, just the whole, holds up the hand, holds up the arm, and just wham with the clothesline and just what a great pile driver it was in Hogan. And Hogan sold it like $1 million too. It was great. So of course, this leads to, probably Canada's proudest event, August 28th, 1986, Toronto CNE exhibition. Anywhere from 61,000 to 76,000 fans attended this. All we know is it was like a sea of humanity. When I remember going I had to walk to the video store to rent this tape to see it because it wasn't on live where I could get it where I was living. So I remember watching this and just seeing how many people were in this stadium. It was Hogan Orndorff, and boy, I was a Hulkamaniac, but I wanted Orndorff to win that title. I got to tell you, I really did. Obviously, again, yes, before your time, but you've obviously checked this event out. Give me your thoughts on the big event, as it was called in Toronto.
Well, so it's funny you mentioned the crowd size, and this is something we actually discussed in our Hulk Hogan retrospective. I believe the number that I was able to come with was 71, which regardless was an all-time gate, would be broken at WrestleMania 3, if I'm not mistaken. I think that was broken, but didn't put Canada on the map in terms of wrestling towns, if you will. But it certainly showcased a different side of what it could be. Was it honestly just a great showcase of what we could expect for Canadian dates like moving forward. So without that date, you probably don't have the WrestleManias and the Sky Domes after the fact.
Yeah.
You probably don't have a lot of those Canadian Stampede shows because there would have been no confidence at that point. Again, this is a time when now Vince is kind of out of the payment schedule, and he's a lot more safe, but he's not going to take a running up north if it's not going to pay off for him. So yeah, it was a great event in terms of showcasing what a Canadian crowd could do. And again, a lot of people did want Orndorff to win. Not that they were wanting Hulk Hogan to lose per se, but it was there was a feeling in the air almost. Yeah. Like for a big event like that. And they played it well.
It was such a good heel turn. It just deserved a title run, so it really did. And they could have played that out right till WrestleMania 3. But there was bigger plans in store, so we won't argue against Vince for that. But I'm with you. It just really showed how wrestling crazy Canada was, and I mean, and if you want to hear more about how crazy fans in Canada are for wrestling, listen to Grappling with Canada.
There you go.
With Andy the Taxman on Spotify or iTunes or wherever you get your wrestling podcasts, or on YouTube as well. But you touch on the Toronto scene lots of times, and just the history in the Ontario wrestling side of things. But it really was, it made you as a Canadian feel like, oh wow, we've done something special here.
Yes.
And I mean you're talking peak WWF at this point. Honestly, I feel like, now I might be just out of my mind, but I feel like that was almost more peak WWF than WrestleMania 3, because like you had such hot things going on all around. You know what I mean? Like it was just like 86 just felt like a different year, because not only was WWF peaking, but the NWA was peaking as well. I mean, the 86, the NWA was on fire as well. So I don't know. 86, myself and Ted the Hillbilly Heel, who's on this channel a lot, we always talk about 86 is our favorite year in wrestling, because there was just so much going on, so many great angles, so much great events and stuff like that. So yeah, but let's move on. So we're not done with Mr. Orndorff yet as far as my match suggestions, because we got another one to go, and I'm talking about January 3rd, 1987. Once again, we're going back to Saturday Night's Main Event. You're seeing a pattern here as far as things go. You have the famous steel cage match with Paul Orndorff and Hulk Hogan for the WWF title. The famous drop down at the same time for both Orndorff and Hogan. Their feet touch the floor at the same time. Very well done angle. Everybody, we had a soon-to-be heel Danny Davis that was saying that that Orndorff won, and then we had Hogan's favorite referee Joey Morella saying that Hogan won. But well done angle. Unfortunately, in the end, they did not give the title to Orndorff. They restarted the match. Of course, Hogan must win. Hogan must pose. Hogan must get ready for WrestleMania 3 because he's got bigger and better things. But your thoughts on the Hogan Orndorff feud overall and just how they finished it off with that match?
Yeah, again, I thought the feud was tremendous. I mean, you essentially have a 3-year feud. And I mean, it's funny you mentioned earlier the Hogan Jr. aspect.
Mm-hmm.
That was also a fan perspective.
Yeah.
So it was nice to see him break out of that and really come to his own. And just you're setting up perfect opponents for Hogan to really showcase Hogan, right?
Yes.
Orndorff was just a tremendous worker and super unselfish, right? Is the other part of it as well. And I have all the time in the world for a Paul Orndorff match, certainly.
Oh yeah, and just that whole gimmick with the double drop down on the cage was just it was something that you weren't used to back in the day. It gets overused now, but it was such a cool way to tease a possible title change.
Was that that was the blue cage, right?
That was the big blue,
yeah. Fond memories.
Oh yeah, for sure. Okay, so we're done with the Orndorff thing. Now we're moving on, and of course, we're moving on to WrestleMania 3, and Hogan just he had a trouble keeping those friends, didn't he? Right. So we go from the greatest heel turn of all time, in my opinion, as far as what I enjoyed, but we go to the most epic heel turn of all time with Andre the Giant turning heel on Hulk Hogan in Piper's Pit, ripping the cross off him, ripping the Hulk Rule shirt, cutting him open. Side with Bobby the Brain Heenan, of all people, Hogan's mortal enemy, Bobby the Brain Heenan. Just a tremendous job. We know what Andre was at that time. He was suffering, he was hurting, he was not the Andre of old. He's not the Andre of 1980 that we talked about, a leaner Andre who could move around that ring and stuff like that. But it didn't matter. This was, icon versus legend, or however the heck you want to put it. It was, in front of supposedly 93,176 fans. It was probably more like 79,000. Who cares? You got that many people in the arena. It's still amazing that they came for basically that one match. Although there was another match that stole the show that night, but we'll focus on that a different time. But yeah. So what blows my mind most about this, and this is what really bugs me, and whatever, people can say what they want. I know Andre was pretty immobile at the time, but it was a moment. It was a moment. And Dave Meltzer gave that -4 stars. And I don't care what you say. I don't care about work rate. The fans were there for that moment. The fans got what they wanted. The fans got their money's worth. They saw the body slam heard around the world. There's no way that match should have got -4 stars, in my opinion.
See, that's one where the fans make the match.
Mm-hmm.
Right. That's if there's any perfect example, it's obviously that one. And again, like you said, that's one where the fans were there for one reason. Yeah, there was another classic on that show, but they were there for one reason and one reason only. And they were there to see that feud. They want to see that match. Yeah. And yeah, like you said, doesn't matter if it's 71 or 93,000, whatever it was. You have a full house for, again, a reason, right? Hogan's the draw. They want to see him vanquish the evil giant, kind of once and for all. Although that's not quite what happened.
The big, nasty, stinking giant, as he used to call him. Yeah. And of course, that other amazing match in that card was Butch Reed versus Coco Beware, right?
Yes, very, very highly. That must have got the rest of the stars that Meltzer took away from the.
That's the one. All right. In another universe, that actually would be a great match, but unfortunately, WWF style, that wasn't quite there. But
well, it's because it didn't happen in Japan. Of
yeah,
course.
exactly. But yeah, so whatever. If you could put yourself in a time machine and go back to that time, I don't care. There's no way that match gets -4 stars. It's a spectacle. It's what every fan wants to see. It was the buildup. It was the best buildup to the storyline, just the whole Andre turn. It was everything. So, I mean, whatever. This is where kind of, for me, Meltzer kind of went off the rails a little bit with that stuff. So, but it goes back to, I don't think he was a fan of what Vince was doing with wrestling. And I get
not
that.
at all.
I get that, but you still got to give credit to the moments for that. So, before we get to the other match that you're talking about with Andre, there's one other moment that I want to mention because, as Evan brought up in that episode that we did, it was kind of like Hogan after 87, after WrestleMania 3, after vanquishing Andre, it just became the Hulk Hogan Victory Tour.
Yeah.
Line them up, I'll knock them down. Let's bring in Kamala. Let's bring in One Man Gang. Let's bring in, whoever big man. Let's just go with that formula instead of like the Greg Valentines and the Don Moroccos and guys like that. So
yeah.
But there's a pretty important moment that happens yet again on Saturday Night's Main Event. I'm sure you'll probably remember this one. It's October 3rd, 1987. The match is actually Randy Savage versus Honky Tonk Man, but it is the Mega Powers uniting for the first time. It's, Savage coming out of WrestleMania 3 after his match with Ricky Steamboat was still a heel, but after that match, the fans were dying to turn Savage face, kind of like they were with Hogan back in the AWA, and this was the moment that they did it with the Hart Foundation and Honky Tonk Man jumping Randy Savage. Elizabeth gets thrown down to the mat. She has to go backstage to find someone to help Savage. So who else is she going to find? She's going to find Hulk Hogan. And I can't believe I left this off, but I should mention there's a few Randy Savage Hogan matches from '86 that are pretty darn good too, if you can find them on from the Boston Garden and stuff like that. But I can't include everything. But anyways, we'll get to Randy Savage and Hogan.
We'd be here for one of my show lengths.
Exactly. So we have it. Hogan saves Savage. The handshake heard round the world. The Mega Powers unite. What a moment that was.
Yeah.
I know you weren't there to see it live. I was. And it's one of those moments where you're like, I'm sorry, you're geeking out as a wrestling fan. This was something that you didn't think you're going to see, but it's one of those moments we don't get enough of these days where it's obviously going to happen. It's inevitable, but it does happen and the fans get what they want. And I feel like that's part of the problem with wrestling sometimes today too, is you're not getting what you want a lot of the times, or not in the time span that it should be happening.
Well, and I feel like the other thing too is you had something that the fans were willing it to happen.
Yeah.
Right. Like part of the reason is because, again, you have people who aren't shoved down everybody's throats. Some people could argue that Hogan may have been starting at that point. I disagree personally.
Yeah.
So you don't have that. You don't have your superstars constantly being featured in 20-minute talk segments. Monday, Wednesday, or Monday, Saturday, Friday, whatever.
Yeah.
It's special still. They're presented as being special. And so what happens here with the handshake heard around the world is, and you could just hear the fans as the handshake is happening, right? Even like something, so it sounds so silly to just say it out loud, but you got to understand the context of the moment. And
yeah,
I still watch, like I'll if I'm scrolling through Instagram or whatever, for example, and I see that clip pull up, I watch that every single time because it's great.
You want to really like go nerd-tastic on this, and you're never going to find it now, but because on Peacock they've taken out all the original music for stuff, yes. Right? But I remember watching that and watching it live, and at the end of that show, when they're rolling the credits, they're replaying the whole handshake and Savage lifting Elizabeth on his shoulder and stuff. and they're playing Tammy Wynette's "Stand By Your Man."
Oh, no way.
Yes, and honestly, like, it brings a tear to your eye. Yeah, I like it. It really does. At that point, like, it's no different than WrestleMania 7 when Savage and Elizabeth finally get back together, and you see the women in the audience crying. But it was just, they did such a good job with it. But you'll never get that because, you know, copyright and all this stuff, and they don't have the rights for it. But just things like that, and like you say, it's a freaking handshake. But it was done so well. And I mean, and talk about done so well, this whole Hogan Savage thing is just done so well right from the get-go. But we'll move on. So we have the Mega Powers unite. The focus is more, you know, on Savage for the most part, really building him up as a baby face. You know, he's going to be the next guy. You're still questioning, okay, how are they going to get off Hogan? Well, we find out. We finally have that big matchup, the rematch between Hogan and Andre. It's February 5th, 1988. The main event, not Saturday night's main event. This is the main event because it's in prime time on NBC. Right. 33 million viewers for this wrestling show. 2 matches: Savage Honky Tonk Man and Hogan and Andre. And I was so disappointed when Savage didn't win the Intercontinental title because at the time I didn't realize what they were doing right with Savage. But and I couldn't stand Honky Tonk Man being the champion. But
well, you know, you had to get that streak after all.
Yeah, exactly. But then we have it. We have 33 million people watch probably the greatest wrestling angle of all time, the twin referee angle.
Yes.
And Hogan losing the title. Like, I mean, again, it's
a masterpiece. It's a masterpiece.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Hebners were great in this one too.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just
you go with it, man.
Just this again is another one where work rate doesn't matter. That all goes out the window. It's the emotion, it's the feeling in the crowd, and this is prime, like, it's all sizzle at this point too, but the proper kind, which
I'd almost call this a sleight of hand because Andre, like, the match is terrible. Andre can't do anything, but this is sleight of hand. So you don't even think about how bad the match is because the ending is just, it's mind blowing. Right. So sleight of hand with sizzle. Yes.
And the aftermath is still something that sticks in my craw a little bit, but maybe we'll get into that in a second.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the angle. And folks, if you're not aware of it, then I don't know what rock you're sleeping under, but you should really check. You should check all these matches out because if you're not aware of that storyline. But anyways, Ted DiBiase, you know, he hires the plastic surgeon to have, you know, Earl Hebner's face be done just like his brother Dave Hebner's face, you know, because it couldn't be twins, right? It had to be plastic surgery, and the dollar bills were hanging out of the referee's pocket. And Hogan's arm is up at 1, but they still count to 3. Andre wins the title and then immediately relinquishes it to Ted DiBiase.
Yeah.
And that's probably the only flaw in this whole storyline because I think they weren't sure where they were going with that because originally they did recognize DiBiase as champion. He had a couple of defenses on host shows, and then they said, nope, we're stripping DiBiase of the title. We're never calling DiBiase champion. Probably the one mistake I would say with the storyline. I would just get the belt on DiBiase.
I 100% agree.
Yeah, and I would just had Savage and DiBiase at WrestleMania for your win, and then Hogan Andre like they had. But whatever, we got a convoluted tournament. I'm not going to include the Hogan Andre match from WrestleMania 4 in this list because it's just not good. This was it for Andre's run, really, for being good matches with Hogan. But this storyline, just phenomenal. What a way to get the title off of Hogan. I know they're going to say, well, Hogan wouldn't lay down the ring to do it. No, this is, if you're going to do it in a great storyline, this is a great way to do it, right? This isn't Shawn pretending he has a knee injury. This is just brilliance.
Yeah, he didn't lose his smile.
No.
That's why the DiBiase thing always, it was just such a miss. That's the only thing that's a miss in that whole program is I really think they should have recognized him, because you could have went 100 different. I think they didn't know. I think it was such a success that they didn't know what to do. I think honestly, it was shocking to them even how over it was. So they just got lost, I think is what it was.
I agree. I think they keep it on DiBiase, keep building Savage, and then just have him win it in a straight up match, a classic match. Because DiBiase and Savage could have put that on.
Oh yeah.
Without the Hogan interference too, that would have been even better. But whatever. Or the only other thing I would have done is I would have had Steamboat and Savage go through that tournament, and you have Steamboat and Savage with a rematch for the world title at WrestleMania 4. That's the only other thing I would have done.
It would have been hell of an angle.
It would have been, yeah. But anyway, so as far as Mr. Hogan, through 1988, he's busy filming No Holds Barred. He comes back later in the summer to prepare for SummerSlam 88. This is the infamous Mega Powers versus Mega Bucks match with the secret weapon that they had, Miss Elizabeth and her itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini, which turned out to be just basically a red swim or something like that. But it worked, but whatever. Supposedly the rumor was that actually what they had planned for SummerSlam was for Ric Flair to come to WWF and they were going to build Savage Flair for the title. That's a rumor. I don't think that was ever going to happen. Flair's just too loyal a guy.
I think they made the play, but this is still at this point in time. Everybody has to remember that NWA is real hot at this point. At this point, and Flair was not going to leave Dusty in the wind. It was not going to happen. So, yeah. So we got as much as wanting minds might have wanted it. It was not meant to be.
Yeah. So we got the Mega Powers, Mega Bucks. Not a great match. Again, it's a tag team match, main event. They threw Jesse Ventura in there as a referee just to try to spice it up a bit. Andre's pretty immobile at this time. DiBiase's doing yeoman's work in the ring. Really, this is all about setting up the Mega Powers explosion storyline. And this is the very first crack in that when Hogan throws Elizabeth up on his shoulder instead of Savage. And then, Hogan supposedly puts his hand on Elizabeth in an inappropriate way just to start the storyline, which is, again, this is one of the best storylines. I mean, this run from 84 to 89 is just phenomenal as far as, or really to 90 is phenomenal as far as Vince and the booking of this. But after that, really, as far as matches of notes, there wasn't really anything. We just kept the build going with the Mega Powers, the breakup with them. We finally get that on February 3rd, 1989, the second main event on primetime TV. It's the Mega Powers versus the Twin Towers tag team match. This is where we get the Mega Powers explode, basically. Savage gets flung out of the ring by... I think it's Akeem, and he ends up landing on Elizabeth. Hogan takes Elizabeth back to the dressing room. There's the infamous, they come back from advertisement. Hogan's asking for Tizime to find out when it's his cue to start wailing for Elizabeth. And then Savage, of course, goes ballistic, jumps Hogan. And we finally get the breakup of the Mega Powers. Again, have you gone back to check this one out?
I have, not recently, but yeah, the Hogan faux pas is the one thing that kind of sticks out in my memory. It's just,
yeah. But the beauty of editing, you'll never see that again because the network and the Peacock and all that, they'll just edit that out. So
Instagram lives forever, brother.
Instagram lives forever. Yeah, exactly. And before we move on from that, was there any matches in that time that I'm missing there that are of note that you can think of?
I mean, not anything of note specifically. Again, we kind of discussed that this was a lot of the formulaic Hogan era.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
The only one I guess of note would have been Saturday Night Main Event, April 25th, 89. That would have been Hogan and Bossman in the steel cage. And
we're gonna get to that because we still got
Okay.
WrestleMania 5 to go.
Sorry,
which is right before it.
I've jumped my gun here.
That's okay. That's okay.
So
But
I
nothing
apologize
from
for that.
nothing. You're with me like 88.
88,
was
no.
kinda,
I mean, even the Survivor Series was,
Yeah.
it's a pretty weak one.
Yeah.
Like you had mentioned previously. So yeah, not too much there.
Yeah. And Royal Rumble wasn't really playing a factor like it does now or anything like that. So really, it was the whole Mega Powers Explode storyline, which leads to the match at WrestleMania 5. As we're just going to say, that was April 2nd of 1989, WrestleMania 5, Hulk Hogan versus Randy Savage. To me, one of
Yes.
my favorite Hulk Hogan matches, to be quite honest with you. I love his match with Savage. For some reason, a lot of people don't look back on that match very fondly, but I was a fan of it. And I also take into the fact that Savage worked it with a pretty bad elbow. He had, oh God, what's it called? Staph infection. Yeah.
Oh, it was
something like that.
Staph.
Yeah. Yeah. So still being Savage, he goes out there and puts on an amazing performance. I mean, you had the whole storyline, who's Elizabeth going to be with? And then even after the end of it, you have Sherry show up. And that's the first introduction of Sherry as possibly being with Savage. So I don't know. Have you actually gone back and checked out WrestleMania 5 and watched that match? And what are your thoughts on the conclusion to the Hogan Savage storyline?
So I didn't mind the match. Like, Savage was great. This also goes in the vein of, we're starting to get, we're starting the Hogan fatigue train. This is kind of where it. So if you go back and listen, the crowd is not as electric as you would think it would be for a match of this magnitude. Again, we get saddled with Dave Meltzer just not enjoying this one. What do you give this? 2.25?
Yeah, and I mean,
not
it was
great.
also it was in Trump Plaza too for the second.
Yeah,
year in a row.
just
So that hurt.
a weird.
Hurt. Yeah.
But in terms of kind of wrapping up, and then the introduction of sensational or scary Sherry, depending on what you remember her as. That was. It was a nice way to kind of dovetail into something different, which they both needed at that point.
Yeah, and I mean, it's. I guess I look at it. I think Savage should have kept the title. I think that would have been amazing. Would have been amazing if he had got the win over Hogan.
And that's also why I mentioned the fatigue portion, right? Because they didn't make that change. Go ahead, please.
But I will say Hogan Savage run. So WrestleMania 5, Hogan Savage, and then WrestleMania 6, Hogan Warrior. Probably two of Hogan's best matches in that era. And then Savage with Warrior. Again, another great match pulled off by just this trio of guys. But so I would have loved to have seen Savage keep the title. Also, it's unfortunate the way it just Savage loses the title and then he's out of the picture and he's feuding with Beefcake, and that's it. But they had to build up the whole Sherry thing and they had to build it up, and Hogan was doing no holds barred and they wanted to get the whole Zeus thing going on. I'm not even including any Zeus matches.
Let's not do any of that, please.
So the only other match I think from '89 that I include is the one you just mentioned. So let's hear your thoughts on that. It's Saturday night's main event, May 27, 1989. It's Boss Man and Hogan, steel cage, Big Blue.
And this is, I think this was the first match I ever. Again, I was 4 years old at this, so I never watched it live. But a cousin of mine used to have wrestling tapes. He used to actually wrestle. Maybe there's a conversation we'll have after. With he used to wrestle with somebody who's a big star in AEW right now. Maybe we'll have that conversation later. But this was the first steel cage match I ever saw. Like this, I would have seen this in maybe '93. I love the match. It's slow, whatever, but to me it was a spectacle of these two huge, like just larger than life dudes, and I still can't get over the athleticism of Ray Traylor, Big Boss Man.
Yeah,
he's just incredible. And it's funny because as I've grown up and gone back, then I went and saw his NWA stuff that he was doing. Is like, man, he's just what an incredible. Yeah, it was a spectacle to me, right?
Yep.
The match was whatever. It wasn't a great match, and I mean, kind of hard to see with the cage. And I know that was always the big knock about the blue cage, but I loved the spectacle of it, just even as a kid.
You're not going to forget that superplex for as long as you live.
Exactly.
Like, Boss Man. And we're not talking slim down Boss Man during his face run. We're talking 350-pound Boss Man coming off the top of that cage, right?
Yeah.
And apparently, so in my research for this, I found out that apparently they did that same match like a week or so before that at MSG or Philadelphia or something like that. And Boss Man took that same superplex off the top of the cage in that match too. And supposedly that match was even better. Because it's a host show, they're more freed up to do whatever they want. And but yeah, that's such a memorable moment for me. I'll tell you how memorable it was. I still remember the Monday, so that was Saturday, the Monday I'm walking home from school. So this is 89, so I don't know. I'm in grade 7 or something like that, 7 or 8, I can't remember. But walking home from school, and a buddy of mine, he was 8 years old or something, but he's the son of my parents' best friends. He sees me walk. He's driving up the road, sees me walk, and he honks the horn. He hangs out the window. He's like, "Did you see Hogan superplex Boss Man off the cage?" Right? Like, that's the only thing he's saying to me. And I'm like,
that's awesome.
And I'm like, yes, I couldn't believe it. Like not high, not anything. It's just, did you see Hogan superplex Boss? So that told me it was a moment. Like, it was an epic moment. But yeah, that's probably my only memory I have of 89 Hogan besides win the title. Aside from that, it was just garbage with Zeus and Akeem and all these.
Oh, but he's the African Dream. Come on.
Yeah, exactly. So really, so that's pretty much for 89 for me. I don't know if you got any. And again, I know, folks, there's probably stuff that's on tape traders from Sheboygan or something where he fought Luthez for 50 minutes or something like that. But we're talking about things that people can get their hands on. But my next match that I think people should check out is from January 27, 1990, Saturday night's main event, which is Hulk Hogan and the Ultimate Warrior versus
That's right.
the Genius and Mr. Perfect. And this is just setting up the whole Hogan Warrior feud and set up the whole storyline for this. And it's the one time we actually didn't get a heel turn, which was interesting. They decided to go face versus face for this one. But this is the weird one where Hogan and Warrior, they end up banging into each other. And, Genius and Perfect were so great in this match too.
Yeah.
Like, what a run it was for Lanny for that whole run in 89 with Perfect. It was such a great pairing with them. But Warrior does that weird thing where he's trying to help Hogan up, but he's like slapping his face really weird. And he like, Warrior is so just...
He's not my cup of tea. So
when I was a kid, he was fantastic. Like, I love this guy. The music's great. The face paint, the muscles, all this. But now I look back and like, oh God, how did I even?
See, I never got it. Like, even as a kid, I never got it. Never ever got it.
Yeah. But yeah. Anyways, but they were setting up. It was the two biggest names at the time. Warriors, the IC champ. Hogan's the champ. They won. You're right. It was Hogan fatigue. They needed to get the belt off Hogan. They needed to find the next one. They thought it was Warrior. Unfortunately, they weren't right about that.
They desperately wanted it to be Warrior.
They did. But we did get yet another Toronto moment. We had WrestleMania 6, April 1st, 1990, and 60-something thousand fans, 63 or 64,000 in the Sky Dome for WrestleMania 6. And again, say what you will about Warrior. Say what you will about Hogan. This was a 22-minute match, and they pulled it off. It was actually a really good match. I will say this is probably the best match that you could have expected from these two guys. They exceeded expectations. I'm sure Meltzer probably gave it negative 60 stars, but it was a moment.
Interestingly enough, and we've been pretty critical, although I've been extremely critical of Meltzer over the past couple of years, but this is the highest rated match for either Hogan or Warrior, 3 3/4. So, but to me, Hogan carried the match.
Yes.
I mean, how do I want to phrase it? Warrior was very happy in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
He was just all over the place, and not in a good way. Like he wasn't moving properly. He wasn't balancing right. There was a lot of times you could tell Hogan was trying to slow it down, calm him down, or whatever. It is interesting though that they have this match in Toronto. This match doesn't happen if Orndorff and Hogan wasn't as successful as it was, in my opinion.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a really good point. The big event laid the groundwork for them to get a WrestleMania.
And this is one of the few times where, I've said it multiple times over the course of the previous episode and this one, where Hogan was always paired with the proper opponent to really showcase him. Well, now Hogan has to be the one to showcase Ultimate Warrior, and I felt like he actually did a hell of a job.
He did. Yeah, he really did. I give kudos to people say, he tried to steal his thunder at the end with the whole presenting on the belt and then looking back on the cart and all that. But I don't even mind that. You got to give Hogan his moment. I mean, this guy had carried the company for 6 years. I mean, and Warrior got his moment too. The show ended with Warrior up on that turnbuckle with both belts, the fireworks going off. It was really well done, and I mean, unfortunately, then you had the Warriors champion, and then that didn't work for them. So who'd they go back to? They go back to Hulk Hogan, of course, right?
Yes.
And Hogan knew it. Hogan knew they'd be coming back to him because he knew Warrior wasn't going to work out, but they let it go for most of 1990, or right through 1990, and then of course they finally get the belt off him at Royal Rumble 91, and Slaughter gets it. And I don't have a Hogan match listed for 1990 besides that WrestleMania match, because again, he was feuding with Earthquake. I mean, I love John Tenta. But that feud did nothing for me, to be quite honest, because I knew it was just going to be another big man to feed to Hogan. He was, John Tenta was doing such a great job of getting himself over, but it was all just to set him up for Hogan to knock him down.
So, just in regards to the Earthquake, obviously the most memorable thing was him squashing Hogan, and then Hogan getting the postcards mailed, which coincidentally gave
mailing addresses.
WWF mailing addresses, which they very easily took advantage of. Yeah, that was such a weird one because Earthquake was getting over, and then he ran into Hogan. That just kind of killed him, and then he obviously goes in the tag team after that, and the rest is kind of, he never really reestablishes himself as a major player, unfortunately. And there's not really anything memorable for myself either in 1990. Although, I mean, if you want to go off the grid, there is, I don't know if you can find it anymore, but there was All Japan match with Hogan and Stan Hansen. But I mean,
yes, there was that. Yeah,
that's a good one, but it's a classic. It's a Stan Hansen match, right? You're not watching it for a Hurricane Rana or even an Enziguri, as everybody was very hot and heavy about it in the 80s. It's just a match where they beat the hell out of each other, and but that was it was what it needed to be.
Yeah, it was a brawl, and so that was
absolutely.
I'm glad you included that one. The next match I show for Hogan that I think people should check out, and many will argue with me probably on this one, but I thought it was a great match, to be quite honest. Forget all the stuff around it. It's Hogan Slaughter at WrestleMania 7. Aside from the fact that it was supposed to be at the Coliseum, but they had the bomb threats or the death threats and all this stuff, so they had to move it to the smaller arena, and forget the fact that they just didn't sell the tickets for it. I thought the angle, I know people say, that was such a terrible angle, the Iraq sympathizer. I enjoyed the angle. I loved it. I did too. Yeah.
I wish they would have fed into it more, and they killed it short because whatever people were. See, this is the weird thing. They say people were complaining about it. I don't know. I think they just got cold feet honestly is what it felt like to me.
To me, if you're a heel, you get heat. You get heat no matter how you can get heat. That's your job. You know, we're not supposed to like heels. So I thought this was Slaughter doing a great job of playing a great heel. I thought the angle, I liked the angle. I mean, that was just me, but whatever. But I thought the match too. I remember, I don't know how I think I was doing this for this match for another podcast, but I had my wife watching with me, and I just talked to her. I said, you know, this is Hogan. He's 91. He's, you know, he's not as quick in that as he was in the 80s, and he's not, you know, he's got to rely on different things. But I said, watch him sell. Watch him sell.
Yeah.
Like there's points in that match where he's reaching out to the camera, kind of like how a Ricky Morton would reach out to the camera and just begging the fans to help him get out of this move and stuff like this, right? And you know, he bled buckets in that match, and he did everything he could to get that match over.
Yeah.
And I'd say, to me, that was probably Hogan's last great singles match with the WWF in that run. And I thought it was a good match. Now, did he need to win the title? Did he need to go over? Whatever. If that war was still going on when that match happened, people would have loved him going over because it's the All-American hero going over. They didn't have another one lined up at that time. But because of things just ended so quickly, people were kind of like, I don't know if we need Hogan win this match, right?
But that's what I mean. If they would have fed into it, properly fed into it, instead of again, this is my personal opinion, just, you know, things I've heard over the years and people I've talked to. I think that the office got cold feet about it. And then the ticket sale thing, people will say that, oh, fans didn't want to pay to see the feud. I don't necessarily agree. That's why they have the ticket problem. I think that there was a bunch of factors leading into it. It wasn't just blaming it on that one part of it is incorrect in my opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, the problem was, you know, it was kind of like they were kind of on the downswing at that point. You know, you had the Savage Warrior match, which turned out way better than anybody expected.
Yes.
Again, Savage
carried him.
Should have got he should have got Wrestler of the Year that match. And
Yeah.
Sherry should have got nominated for Wrestler of the Year too for the work she did in that match, because she took a beating from from the Warrior. But you know, other than that, I mean, it was just an odd card, to be quite honest. And so it was one match card. But there's one other match in 1991 that I want to mention. And I just watched it again today. It's Hulk Hogan versus Ric Flair in the WWF, November 12th, 1991.
Yeah, that's right.
It was released on the WWE Vault. It's a host show match that was taped for primetime wrestling, and they never ended up showing this. But I realized we got robbed of the true Hulk Hogan Ric Flair match that we should have had at WrestleMania 8. And it's unfortunate we didn't get that, but we didn't. We should have had it in WWF. We did get it in WCW, but by that time, you know, Hogan's really, his luster is starting to go. Both guys are a bit older. This is going to be the one match where they're the youngest that they could possibly be fighting each other, is in 1991. It was a KO victory by Hogan, but still, it's just nice to see Flair and Hogan in that ring doing their thing together. And it's unfortunate. It just makes me wish we had gotten that main event at WrestleMania 8 between those two. Have you seen that match?
I haven't seen that one, but it is. I've heard about it. I haven't seen it, but just to piggyback off something you just said, that's the youngest it would have been ever to work together in that. And maybe we'll talk about the WCW one at a later point in time.
We will, yeah. Mm-hmm.
So I don't want to get my thoughts too far, but to me, that the whole Ric Flair run there was just a missed opportunity when he was with the WWF. I'm not sure what you feel about that. I know we're Hulk Hogan centric today, but I just wanted to get that.
No, I agree. I mean, I think Savage and Flair salvaged. They salvaged something out of the feud that they got put together with. But even that, Savage wasn't peak for that. Like he was I believe, trying to have kids with Elizabeth, so he wasn't even on the roids at that time. I don't think so. He wasn't in the best shape of his life. Flair, he's just not feeling the WWF thing. I think he just didn't quite fit in the WWF. I think, hey, in '88, if they hadn't brought him in like they were talking about, and then you brought the Tully and Arn in, and you had Barry Windham in there at that same time, that would have been pretty nice in that run. I think he would have had a totally different scenario. But '91
For
Flair
sure.
just didn't work. It just didn't work, and I don't think Flair's confidence was at an all-time high at that point either.
No, you could tell it. I mean,
Yeah.
that whole you could just. And I'm sure if you ask him, he'd probably say the same thing. He's pretty honest about that part of it. But yeah, just very disappointing how that whole situation happened.
So we would be remiss to mention, I'm not going to suggest going and watching these matches. I wasn't too impressed with them, but of course he had his 2 matches with The Undertaker where he lost the title to The Undertaker at Survivor Series. Flair got involved.
That's when he broke his back.
Yeah, the
right?
phantom neck break or whatever, when he missed the chair by 2 feet.
Yeah.
and then you had the rematch at this Tuesday in Texas, and again Flair was involved. Not great match because this is back when it was Undertaker, dead man, slow moving, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we'll probably talk about a different Undertaker match with Hogan later on, but this one was not one I'd say go check it out. You're not missing anything. So then that led to the whole controversy with the title being held up. And it was going to be contested at Royal Rumble 92. First time ever that they were going to have the world title up for grabs in the Royal Rumble. And this, although it's not a singles match for Hogan, would probably be the last great storyline match, whatever you want to call it, that he would be involved with in the WWF until he came back later in the 2000s. Because this was probably the most loaded Royal Rumble of all time. You had the Flair storyline. This is the one great moment of Flair's run in WWF.
It is, absolutely.
It's the greatest announcing job by Bobby Heenan during that match. I love Heenan during that match. It's just loaded with all-stars, Hall of Famers. Just the storyline with Hogan getting dumped out, Sid, being involved, and then Flair getting the win. I mean, and you want to talk about the luster gone off Hogan. I mean, they had to change up the soundtrack on it just to show that the Hogan wasn't getting booed. So, but that match, what a match. What a match that was. That Royal Rumble was fantastic.
Yeah, and star-studded is kind of an understatement. I mean,
what was it, 22 Hall of Famers or something?
Yeah, IRS, Jake Roberts, Savage, Snuka, Martel, Piper, Slaughter, Shawn Michaels. I mean, British Bulldog, a Taker. Yeah, awesome stuff.
And just the whole angle at the end with the Sid dumping Hogan and then Hogan pulling Sid out and Flair finally surviving and getting that title. And then probably Flair's best promo as well backstage afterwards when he with a tear in my eye, that one. And even Gene Okerlund got a good promo in with the put that cigarette out. But yeah, to me, that was probably it for Hogan. I realize, yes, we did have Sid and Hogan tag team on Saturday Night's Main Event, and Sid ends up turning heel on him. We had the Sid Hogan match at WrestleMania 8, but that's nothing to talk about.
There.
Yeah. And then Hogan's gone thanks to the steroid controversy. So they wanted to just kind of step away from Hogan for a little while that was all going on. He makes a return early in 93 to come back for WrestleMania, supposedly only because he just wants to help Brutus Beefcake against DiBiase and IRS, but somehow manages to get involved in WrestleMania main event and win the title after Brett loses it to Yokozuna at WrestleMania 9. Not a glowing moment in the Hogan run.
No, we don't want to talk about that one.
And then he loses it to Yokozuna at King of the Ring 93. Again, a stupid finish. The whole Harvey Whippleman as the photographer and blinds him with a flame kind of coming out of the camera, and then that's it. Hogan's done. for WWF. That's it. That's his last. Well, a couple of European tour matches, but I mean on TV. That's it. He's done.
Yeah, that was finished. Yeah,
and kind of a strange end for the guy that was, the flag bearer for WWF over all those years. But that's going to do it for us for part 2 of this series. So this is the WWF Rock and Wrestling era run for Hogan, but it's not the end of the run for us, because we're going to have another episode coming out. We're going to talk about his WCW years and his return to WWE in the 2000s. But Andy, any last thoughts on our discussion on these matches? Do you think we hit all the highlights for this?
I think so. And we talked earlier about kind of our eras of influence. So we're now transitioning from your era of wrestling fandom into we're going to be hitting the sweet spot of mine. So it's going to be a great set of conversations, I think, moving forward as well. Not that these weren't, obviously they were. But I'm looking forward to where we go. And there may be some interesting observations ahead.
Yeah,
we'll see what folks have to say about it.
Yeah, and I'm going to let you go in the captain's chair on that one. So,
boy,
I've got some suggestions for myself, but I'm going to let you kind of show me, or let me know your list and see what we hit on. I'm sure there'll be a lot of similarities and stuff like that. But anyways, folks, if you want to support our buddy Andy, go check out Grappling with Canada on YouTube. Go check it out on any app that you listen to your podcasts on. Subscribe, check them out on Facebook. Also tell them about the groups in Facebook, by the way.
Oh yeah. So there's obviously there's a page for Grappling with Canada. You find that, but I also run the Canadian History of Professional Wrestling Facebook group. And we have well over 1,000 members now. And there's some great stuff that's put in there. A lot of stuff from Quebec, a lot of stuff from Stampede, a lot of obscure things that, quite frankly, I haven't seen it in almost ever. So a lot of great stuff. A lot of people asking about information on family members that they have, which I always think is great. And, the amount of engagement those posts get are great. And I've met so many people through there, individuals that I've had on the program as well. It's a great group. So if you are like-minded with your professional wrestling history fandom, then you can find the Canadian Professional Wrestling History Facebook group.
Okay, awesome. All right, go on over there, join that group, support Andy on all those different apps, and until next time, we'll be talking part 3, the WCW years. Andy, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to our next conversation.
My pleasure. It's a complete honor. Thank you so much, BC.